When I first started playing the video game titled Control, with this poster of this girl just holding out her arms while rocks fly around her, I had no idea what I was getting into. Like, I legit had no idea what this game was about. I thought it was gonna be some sort of, sci-fi, magical game. Like, sure, it was that, but it was very different. As soon as you enter the game, you notice this weird theme. Now, it's something I do not like. Like, I'm pretty sure most of you might or might not relate to this, but when I see office spaces in the nighttime with corridors and blinking lights and just this endless office space, empty office space at night, that's scary. That shit is very scary, and I don't like it. And this game has that. This is why I found this game insanely good. It's because it delivered a kind of horror that I was not expecting. Like, sure, it's a shooter, it's a third-person shooter, and you have some magic abilities, and you fight the Hiss, which is basically zombie people with the red glowing lights. Yeah, I'm not talking about the Metal Gear Survive game, but it's very close to that. And these Hiss, the enemies, there's so many variety into the enemies. Like, there's strong ones, there's flying ones, there's ones that can blast and explode when they come to you, and there's ones that can shoot missile launchers at you. There's ones that just shoot. There's ones that can levitate and control rocks and throw rocks towards you. So the enemy variety is actually quite good. There's a lot of different types of, and there's so many boss battles in the game. Keeping that aside, when there is no enemy and you're like sort of roaming around this huge map, there's a lot of different sections in this game. You're sort of stuck in this huge office, and each level of the office is sort of a different section, like a research, maintenance, contaminant, or there's different floors, and each of them have their own maps, and they're pretty big. So as you venture your way throughout this map, you mostly find yourself empty. There's no companion, there's no people walking around. You're alone in this office space at night, in this endless office space with blinking lights and just hallways and corridors that just have shadows, and it's spooky, okay? And I genuinely got jump scared when enemies would pop up from nowhere. Like, there's a section of the game where I would just roam around trying to find something or a puzzle, and then enemies would pop up and I'd jump a little bit. I'm not the one to shout or something like other streamers out there, but I do jump a little bit when I get jump scared. And yeah, this game was able to do that. Even though it wasn't marketed as a horror game, it definitely feels like a horror game for most. But once the enemies are out and you know that there is enemies, you start shooting and using your powers, it's all fine. But that empty, lonely, alone time that you spend doing puzzles and walking around, that part gives me the most creeps. And somehow that part was even more scarier than fighting a boss battle. Boss battles are good in this game. That's another amazing thing that I want to say, is that there's so many boss battles, and these boss battles are not easy. These are hard boss battles, and you have to constantly try to understand their attack patterns multiple times by dying to basically finally kill them. These kind of boss battles are good boss battles because they're difficult. They sort of remind you of Dark Souls kind of game. And I had fun doing the boss battles. I didn't want to skip any boss battles. I wanted to do all of them, and it was really fun. But let's talk about some things that this game is not really. Let's talk about the bad things about this game. Okay, a few bad things this game has is, first of all, that narrative, the story, narrative. I don't know how you say that, but the story of this game is kind of it's average. But at best, like, sure, they try to make this like this entire. It gives you this so Stranger Things vibes, like where you don't know what's happening and stuff sort of reveal itself one by one. But at the same time, you don't buy it. Like, you just see it and you're like, okay, it's whatever, man. Like, the story doesn't come across as, oh my god, I knew this was happening or that was happening. No, they just somehow stuff in unnecessary plots in between. And like, there's her brother that comes from out of nowhere, in between of the game. Like, that's the main focus of the game, and we didn't even know about that. And we have no connection to the brother or what her past was, so you really don't care about the main character as well. But yeah, the story is average. Nothing great about the story. So you just want to go and fight and play this game for what it is and not the story. Another thing about the game is the game does have some bugs. Sometimes a section of the area you'll be stuck and locked inside because these sections are sort of, you have to kill all the enemies and then the wall sort of pops open or something, so that you can progress further. And I found myself multiple times where I've killed all the enemies and I've checked everywhere that there are no more enemies hiding. And then, even then, I could not find my way out. Like, there were still the walls blocking me from going to my next destination, which was annoying because I had to restart the game multiple times. And speaking of not being able to find my way out, another thing about this game is that enemies will hide in the corner, get stuck, and you will never know where they are. Sort of they have these big areas of fighting multiple waves of enemies, and sometimes you'll be stuck not knowing where the enemy is. Like, if the last one, that one last enemy will sort of be hiding somewhere in a corner, and it'll drive you crazy. So yeah, those are some of the bad things about the game that I found weird. Also, the cutscenes of the game are really bad. It's just people looking at each other and moving their lips. That's it. Saying dialogues. They made the cutscenes the most convenient way possible. Like, sure, the people's faces look great, they look realistic, but at the same time, all they're doing is exchanging dialogues with zero hand movements, and that just makes the game feel unrealistic for the most part. Like, that's why I like games like Grand Theft Auto or Uncharted or Death Stranding, where there's so much movement and emotion to everything that's being said, and this game does not do that. But aside from that, the game also ends very abruptly. Like, they have two end credits. Credits. One is a fake credit, which they sort of go, "Ha, gotcha," and the game sort of continues. And one is the main credit, which you also think is the end credit, which you think that's also fake because it ends in such an abrupt way. So yeah, the ending of the game was kind of weird. And yeah, those are the bad things about the game. I believe I've said my good and the bad about the game, and everything aside, the game was actually like pleasantly, surprisingly interesting to me. I was expecting something not very interesting, and this game was actually better than that. So yeah, you should try it if you haven't tried it.